Did you start yet? Hi everyone, I'm Evan Argrescu, and this is Contemporary Issues in the Modern World. I'm here with my co-hosts Nick Ebb and Henry Dyer, and in this episode we are going to be discussing the nationwide dilemma of child labor. Are laws too strict? Are they too loose? And how our inputs can change the rising issues.
Before we start and get into this topic, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may now be seated.
Thank you for that. Now, onto the program. Since the early 18th century, child labor has helped shape the U.S. economy by providing jobs for low-income households and aiding businesses by providing more workers. Its main contribution to the U.S. being the Industrial Revolution, shaping its economy and railroad system.
Child labor during the Industrial Revolution was cheap, reliable labor, but its lack of regulation led to dangerous work environments. And personally, cheap labor sounds great, but other people, they disagreed with it and they made a few laws.
Yeah, the Senate would definitely disagree with that. In 1916, the Senate passed the Keating-Owen Act, which restricted child labor through its power to regulate commerce. This act put a limit on working hours and prohibited the interstate sale of goods produced by child labor.
That's interesting. The Fair Standards Labor Act, sent to Congress in 1937, aimed to eradicate child labor and establish a national minimum wage. Child labor roughly stayed the same for about 70 years. However, recently, Congress and state legislators have started to lighten up on child labor.
It's been a roller coaster of what's going on. First, they love child labor,
Yeah.
then they wanted to get rid of child labor, and now, like in 2023, Senates like Arkansas have taken restrictions off teenagers and children working. 14 and 15-year-olds are allowed to work 2 hours longer every night and 2 hours later every night. And on top of this, they're allowed to work in more dangerous industries such as meat packaging and alcohol.
Sounds like very profitable business for business owners and low-income households and families alike. Lawmakers are continuing to make child labor more accessible for businesses, and in most states, children as young as 14 can work in fast food restaurants.
Yeah, and I've noticed that throughout the different states, there's a lot of different responses and opinions about child labor. Many states have worked to pass laws and bills in an attempt to limit hours that children could work and the industries they can work in, while some states are attempting to loosen the laws surrounding child labor.
One law that agrees with this is one that's been introduced in Iowa, allowing for 14-year-olds to work at meatpacking plants. If the child was to hurt themselves due to their own negligence, the meatpacker will be indemnified against civil liability. That was from an article on the Soapbox website. This allows for the kid to make more money for their family.
There are many different opinions on the issue of child labor, and I personally think that we should be loosening the laws, especially after the pandemic. It's hard for people to find work, and I think that children. It's hard for companies to find work, and I think it's hard for people to find work. And I think that children could be a good source of this problem. It would support the families that they're a part of, and it would give those families more income, seeing as how many parents got laid off of their jobs. It would support the business because businesses had to fire a lot of their employees or had to lay off a lot of their employees. And it could help the kid itself because they would be building a good work ethic and learning how to survive in the modern world.
Yeah. On the other hand, the opinion of many lawmakers is that child labor could significantly affect the social life and academic progress of children who are working. Working a job would take way too much time out of their out of their schoolwork, and their academic progress would definitely diminish.
Um, and a quote that I found was, "The expanding child labor is exactly what American kids don't need." This is for an opposing viewpoint. From the that's from the WashingtonPost.com. They voiced a concern about teenagers working long and late hours in dangerous occupations. This can negatively impact health, education, and future prospects. Teenage workers have higher injury rates compared to adults, and working long hours during high school can decrease college graduation rates, and the academic performance may suffer. So, I mean, there's a lot of good about why we should continue child labor, but there's also the dangerous aspect and the
Yeah,
bad aspect of it.
that's true. However, it will earn them money, and everyone knows that if you make money, people want to be your friend. Also, if you work hours around your school, You'll be able to balance out both and not take that time out of your school. This is an important life skill to learn. You need to balance out your school and your work in day to day life, and it's good if people or if childs learn it earlier on because they can adapt to it later on in life.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Like I feel like even though some people are saying that it'll affect their school grades and negatively impact their health, education, and their future, uh, that a job is needed for migrant and immigrant families. They don't really have the funds to support their families um, or their lifestyle, so they need their kids to work just so that they can live. Like their kids working is the difference between paying rent every month, I guess.
I think that a lot of what we're talking about is very circumstantial. For some people, child labor
True.
isn't a good idea because they need the extra time to focus on school, and they can they're allowed to focus on school
That's true.
because their families make enough income to support them. But in other cases, when you have a family that just moved to the United States, when they're making minimum wage and they don't have enough resources to fund their life, like a lifestyle, they need the kids to be working. And I know it sounds unfair. That's just the truth of where we're at today.
Yep. Um, there was a video we watched in health called "The Bigger You," and one of the families that moved to the U.S. they could only afford to eat McDonald's, and this wasn't healthy for the kids.
That's an interesting point of view, but what do you think our goal should be?
Our goal is to loosen child labor laws by raising the minimum wage and increasing the number of jobs that a child or the different variety of jobs a child can have. Low income households are stuck to making minimum wage because they don't have the experience to start another job or be hired for another job. If children were able to work in different fields and learn more things that pay more, they can support their families more and make more money for them.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely a driving point. Is that these children are desperate to make more money for their families, and them learning a job at a young age and a trade or a skill is just so useful for them, especially in the future when they're going to end up having their own families and, yeah,
And
to
the,
make more
the,
money.
the best way to learn these trades and learn these skills is to get hands-on experience,
When
like
you're young.
when you're young. Yeah, let's say these kids, we open the horizon. We let these kids work in more different industries. But let's say in the beginning they're not working; they're observing, right? They're helping instead of
Yep.
leading it themselves.
Like
Because
internship.
like an intern, like a paid internship, right? I
Yep.
think that raising the minimum wage would also help with this issue for all the people saying that we don't need child labor. If we don't need child labor, if we raise the minimum wage, then these children won't have to work and they can go to school and they can go to university and they can get a higher education.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely feel that these children should at least have the opportunity to work and make enough money so that they can help support their families instead of the government taking away their money and not increasing their funding or their opportunities.
I think that just about sums up our point on child labor and
Yep.
like the opposing points on child labor and what we think about it. Thank you for listening. This has been another great episode of contemporary issues in the modern world. Um, this is me, Nick Bebb, and Henry Dyer signing off.